Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of PopCultX. I think we're on episode 23. My name is Daniel, and with me always is Gabriel. Let's try that again. And with me always is... Oh, yeah. Gabriel is on vacation. So, aloha, Gabe. Hope you're enjoying your Hawaii trip. Well, anywho, I'm here, and for me, that's what matters, I guess. But you're here too, so you want to know what's on, I guess, our mind or my mind is sports and pop culture and how they intermingle and mix. It's been really in the recent news because of the Olympics and Sha'Carri Richardson, I think, with her not being allowed to compete in the Olympics after testing positive for the drug test, which was, you know, really, really sad story. Really sucked, but there she was. I guess in a race this past weekend with some of the other competitors from the Olympics. I guess mainly the her main competition, which were the three Jamaican sprinters, and she didn't. It didn't go as planned for her. If I read correctly, she finished unfortunately last in the field. But given that she hasn't really run in a past month and she was not in that competition mode, it's understandable. But it's not really, um, as she said, she's not done yet, and we're going to hear more from her, which is great because that kind of um, mentality and that kind of personality is what we need. And think about it. So this is a sprinter, a sport that's not really in the mass media, but has taken on a pop culture sense. So she's transcended from being just a sprinter into someone that we want to see and we want to know more about. So we learn her story and we learn where she's competing for and how she's doing it. So I think it's very exciting for the sport itself, and I think it transcends the sprinting and track and field and takes Sha'Carri Richardson up into that next level of pop culture. Now, another thing that I was thinking about this week is I discovered a new band, and this doesn't really have anything to do with sports or anything, but it's a cool band that I found called Houndmouth. They're out of New Albany, Indiana, and they've been together for about maybe 10 years now. But they're coming out with a new album, and the lead song or initial song off of there is called Las Vegas. So, hey, I thought, hey, I live in Las Vegas. That'd be really cool to hear. Listen to it. And hearing the band, it's kind of like, how can I put it best? It's kind of like, you know, that feeling when you're talking with an old friend who you haven't seen in many, many years, but it's all just so comfortable and it comes naturally and it's just like you haven't skipped a beat. It gave me that sort of feeling, like they were just good friends and I could hear them and it was just wonderful. After hearing a couple more of their songs, I realized they have this nice kind of a blues alternative band feel, and was reminded a lot of the Lumineers. So it's a cool band that if you haven't checked out, you need to go look for Houndmouth, and the new song off their new album coming out is called Las Vegas. I highly recommend it. Now, with Gabe gone out on vacation, enjoying the sun and the water and the waves in Hawaii, I decided to, I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to hear me talk for a good 40 minutes. So I brought in a wonderful guest interview to talk about sports and pop culture, and that would be Derek Togerson. Now, Derek is a really cool guy. I follow him on Twitter, and that's how we connected. And he's a sports news professional who works for NBC affiliate in San Diego, and we got to chatting about sports and pop culture because that's what I'm talking about today. So let's go ahead and let's hear that right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Little Talks with PopCultX. I'm Daniel, and today we are joined by a familiar face. If you watch NBC in San Diego, he anchors, he shoots, he produces sports there. We are joined today by Derek Togerson. How are you today, Derek?
I'm doing well, Daniel. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So they haven't given you the keys to the helicopter there yet, eh?
No, unfortunately, I do not have my pilot's license. I have been up in a helicopter before, but never actually been piloting it
Ah,
because they
okay.
understand that I am not good with a car. Therefore, they probably don't want me bouncing around up in the sky.
Well, there's nothing to bounce off of up there in the sky, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but the one time you do find something to bounce off of, it's
It's the
bad.
last time.
If the one time is the last time you bounce off of something with a dirty helicopter.
Right. So just a quick question about you. How did you get into sports broadcast or newscasting and whatnot? What led you
I
to
kind of
that?
I took a bunch of loves of mine and threw them all together when I was in college. I was a wannabe athlete growing up. I was good enough to, play a little bit of college baseball.
Okay.
Wasn't good enough to be a professional baseball player. I learned that pretty even on early on. I got the game upstairs, not necessarily the physical ability to do it. So when I realized I wasn't going to be a pro athlete, I'm like, okay, well, I love sports, but I also started school as a theater major. So I loved
Oh, okay.
performing
Right on.
and I was doing an English minor, so I loved writing. So I finally said, you know what? I did an audition for West Side Story and realized I can't sing a lick, and all these people can actually sing. And this was back when theater was like all Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff, right? It was,
Yeah, I hear you.
it was
Phantom of the
Phantom and
Opera,
Starlight and Cats, and he
Miss
just ruled the
Saigon, and
world.
yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
precisely. And then you threw Grease in there, and you threw West Side Story in there, and that was basically what it was. I'm like, I can't sing. I'm going to be a waiter for a long time, so I better change. So let's see if I can combine my love for sports, writing, and performing. And went and did an internship at a local TV station and said, "This is for me." So I just kind of changed my major, worked my way in, and lo and behold, a lot of really good luck and good relationships. I've been able to now, 24 years later, still to be doing it.
Right on. That sounds fab. That sounds like something right up my alley. I mean, I love sports. I know I couldn't be professional, and I was theater major. So yeah, that's quite awesome. Well, that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you for this particular episode is because I really want to do an episode on sports and pop culture because there is a great commingling of the two entertainment, and
Absolutely.
I think that I'll just get right into it with like the recent Major League Baseball Field of Dreams game.
Mhm.
So that took the Field of
You're going to
Dreams
make me cry this early in the episode, really, by bringing up Field
right
of
off the
Dreams.
bat. We're just knocking
Wow,
that out of the
thanks, Dan.
park.
I appreciate that. Wow, I was bawling like a baby doing that.
It was. I watched the introduction to it. I didn't get to see it live, but I did see it off of Twitter. The introduction when Kevin Costner walked out, roamed around the field for a couple minutes, and then when the players appeared through the cornfield, it just sent chills up and down my whole body. It was just like, wow, Major League Baseball gets it. They know what their fans want, and that was it. And it was just such a great crossover moment for me because earlier in life, I had watched Field of Dreams, but never really understood it until I went back and watched it recently. And just the relationship between baseball and father and son and how it can bring people together. And it was just a fantastic moment. Now, you said you were balling there a little bit. Was that
Well,
something that hit
yeah, I
home for
mean,
you more?
one of my sons is a big baseball player. He's 13, and
Okay.
he is.
Okay.
I coached him in the league, and we had undefeated seasons. And like he's
Oh, right
he's
on.
he's a better ball player now than I ever was. But we bonded over baseball, right? And I'm going to stop
Hmm.
talking about it because I can feel it coming up a little bit already. So that's something that we got. So that movie has always meant something to me, just in that regard. To
Hmm.
see it on that field, and to see, and you're right. Aaron Judge is not a small human, and he just came out of the ether when he walked out of the cornfield and going, how they did that, it's phenomenal. It's almost like movie magic, right?
Hmm.
And you're right, that movie is not about the redemption of Shoeless Joe. It's not about America and how it's rolled by like an army of steamrollers and been
Right.
torn down and rebuilt again. It's about a father and son, and now baseball brings them
Hmm.
together. And seeing that and watching that game, and then with the way that, even I was crying at the end because Tim Anderson hits the walk-off
Right.
bomb,
Right.
and he's a man
Right.
who would not have been allowed to play during the era of the uniforms that they were wearing. I'm like, this is
That's
just
very
so
true.
coming full circle.
Wow. That's
See, is
true.
a moment that was so fantastic like that. The
Hmm.
entire thing was great. And I actually know somebody who was theirs from San Diego. He took his dad and was actually guest of baseball commissioner Rob Manfred. His dad
Oh
has
wow.
ALS and is a huge baseball
Okay.
fan and wanted to be there with his son because they both love the movie.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
listening to their story was like, oh God, this is it's so perfect. And how many times have we been able to say, boy, baseball got it right in the last
Yeah.
20 years, right?
True.
They
Hmm.
screw stuff up constantly. Where's the universal DH? What's this runner on second to start extra innings crap?
Hmm.
They get so many things wrong. For them to be this pitch perfect on something like this, it was just so awesome to see.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Piggy tailing off of Field of Dreams. So, would you say is like your favorite baseball movie?
Oh, another Kevin Costner movie is Bull Durham.
Oh,
I,
okay.
I think
Hmm.
that's, I mean, just having, and I've talked to a lot of guys at the big league level who say they all love that movie to a man because it's the most realistic sports film that they've ever seen. Just in the grind of the bus leagues and the conversations that you have with people and like the struggle to try and make it to the show. And I mean, the lines from that movie too, they're
Right.
iconic, like
They
Paul got
are.
out here in a hurry. Nobody travels that far to have a stewardess on it, don't you think? Although you can't say that. Sorry, flight attendant. Yeah, I have to say.
Yeah.
You hit the bull, you win a free steak. There's so many great moments and lines from that film. That's I every baseball season. Right when spring training's right around getting to an end. Usually after I get back from Peoria from Padres spring training,
Hmm.
I pop that movie on and watch it again, and it's timeless. How about you? What
Yeah.
what is your favorite baseball movie, and is that also your favorite sports movie? Because also my favorite sports movie of all time.
Um. Oh goodness. So, a baseball movie I really enjoy. Let's see. Of course, there's Major League, just because of the
Classic.
characters
Yeah.
involved with it, and
Great
but I
lines in
really.
that one too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I really enjoy like League of Our Own with Tom Hanks.
Mhm.
And I think that takes a different spin on the baseball movie, and of course with the women's professional league. And I think Gina Davis in that movie is just phenomenal. Now I know they're making a spin-off there. I think they're making a TV show with Nick Offerman playing the Tom Hanks coach role.
Really?
Yeah,
I had
coming
not
up
heard
pretty
that. That'll
soon.
be really good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I'm a huge Nick Offerman fan, and I know he has many hidden talents on top of acting. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, just a general favorite sports movie. Wow, there are so many of them.
There's a lot.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
which
there,
is
there there's a
great,
lot.
and it's perfect for what we're talking about today because pop culture, movie, entertainment, and sports they are hand in hand. I know, like, oh goodness, now I'll have to think about that, and I'll circle back to that. What my
Well,
favorite
like
sports
Hoosiers
movie
is
is.
another one that people talk about a lot.
Hoosiers is a
Gene
great
Hackman, the
basketball movie.
basketball,
Hmm.
because that's really based on a true story. And the story is amazing. This tiny little school in Hickory, Indiana, goes and wins
Hmm.
the all division state championship. And shortly after that, they mixed divisions. So we're literally never going to see a team like that accomplish something like that again.
True, and
So it's really really well done film. That one's really good. Rudy is completely Hollywooded up, but darn it, can you not cry when he gets that
right,
sag, which didn't actually happen, but when he gets in there and does that at the end of that game, it's like you're
right.
standing up in the theater, you're clapping, you don't care who's around. It's
Rudy
um,
was one of my favorites growing up. Remember the Titans was probably one of my favorite movies with Denzel Washington, and when they brought together the two high schools and won the football championship. I think that was probably a movie I can watch on repeat just because I like all the characters and how they, the race mixing. And I think it's just a wonderful story and message for us to hear. So I think that's probably one of my top favorites
and,
is
and
Remember the Titans.
and Denzel is just good in everything.
Yeah.
You cannot go wrong putting Denzel in your movie.
That's true.
Now I know one that we talked about kind of when we were chatting about doing this is the Space Jam thing. And I
Hmm.
think that is one that a lot of people, I see it on social media, people going Space Jam, Space Jam. And I think my take is it's absolutely a generational thing because I'm in my late 40s. So that movie came out when I was in college. And
Right.
at the time I was like, in my Pulp Fiction, LA Confidential, Usual Suspects, like Shawshank, like it had to be like more
Uh
gritty kind of
huh. Uh
thing. So
huh.
it never really resonated with me. My wife, it came out when she was 11. So she loves that movie because it was a cartoon that
Okay.
resonated with her then. So I was never into the original Space Jam. I think I'm just outside that age group to make it really, as much as big a Michael Jordan fan as I was,
Hmm.
that kind of lost it. And now watching the new one, my kids really like it,
Oh, okay.
and because it again, like, the cartoon thing, and my wife and I are kind of like, eh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I
I,
hear
I
you.
was actually more excited to see like all those players together on one team.
Yeah,
Because I would
definitely.
love to see Dame and LeBron together on the court. That would be fantastic.
For sure. I mean, I agree with you in the Space Jam and who its the target audience was, especially with the original and then of course the reboot. But just having stars like Michael Jordan or LeBron James just transcend their sport, which I think is what takes them into the pop culture realm. And I think to other stars who have transcended their sport, I think really my thought goes to like pro wrestling with like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, or even now with like Dave Bautista, and they've really come from a sports entertainment platform of wrestling into the mainstream pop culture. Because now we can't turn on a movie in recent years without seeing one of those guys, without seeing Dwayne Johnson or Dave Bautista. They're just taking over and dominating, which I think is great because personally, I think their personality is so charismatic and so over the top that you can't help but root and like them.
Oh, The Rock is, having interviewed him a couple times,
Oh, okay.
everything that you see with him, his personality, is absolutely real. He
Right on.
is 100% legit. Like, that's a dude you root for to have success. Now, his movies get a little repetitive for me. But it's, I mean, the dude, his personality is just so big and so larger than life. He's just such a cool, likable guy. So
Hmm.
if you are on the fence about The Rock, I mean, he's completely legit. Like The Rock, watch his stuff. He's a great dude.
Hmm.
Haven't met Dave Bautista, but I have seen some interviews with him. And what's interesting about him is, as Drax, he is absolutely spot on, perfect.
Yes,
Like,
I agree.
he made that character so much bigger than it ever was. Even in the comics, in one of the iterations, he kills Thanos,
Right.
right? So he was a fairly big deal in the comics.
Hmm.
Kind of had a lot of ability to be kind of a secondary fall off to the wayside character in the movies. Dave Bautista, with help from Mr. Gunn, made sure that didn't happen. So
Right.
he's actually turned into, he was a very bad actor when he started. He's turned into a pretty darn good actor. I mean, if you can carry yourself in a Bond film, you're doing okay for yourself, you know. But I will go to my grave saying the greatest theatrical performance by any former professional wrestler ever, Andre the Giant and the Princess Bride. Tell me I'm wrong.
Anybody want a peanut?
Thank you. Exactly. He's
Yep.
just so lovable, and he was a
Yeah.
heel when he was a wrestler, and he comes and does that film, and he's completely lovable. I love this guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he was the person you wanted to see get defeated because of his size in pro wrestling, but in the movie, he was just so lovable. You're absolutely right, and it was just fantastic. I mean, now he's I think they have his picture, his face on like those stickers you see plastered around town or everywhere. The one artist used that, and I think he just transcended into it. Did you watch the Young Rock show?
I have not.
You have
That
not.
those kinds
Okay.
of things, they don't hold young Sheldon, young they spin-offs of other things. You know, I'm like, that's I've got other stuff to keep an eye. I've got Jeopardy reruns to go catch up on.
Jeopardy reruns. Well, hey, you can get all the right answers, right?
Yeah, seriously. Although, because actually, my wife and I, after Alex Trebek passed away, unfortunately,
Hmm.
because we're both huge Jeopardy, like we bonded watching Jeopardy on the couch and
Oh, okay.
challenging each other because she's freaking brilliant. When he passed, we stopped watching for. We even stopped playing on Alexa for a while because his voice is on there.
Right.
And it
Right.
was just, guys, it was kind of hard to get back to see some of those those episodes without him on us. Now we're kind of after with the DVR going back and catching up on some of the ones. Aaron Rodgers actually did a really good job. Another crossover with sports and pop culture where he was, and he, I think there was really something there with him, the 50-50 retirement thing. I think he
Hmm.
was legitimately flirting with the Jeopardy job. And I think he would have
Really
done a
interesting.
fantastic job with it too.
I didn't get to see him host. I saw a couple of the other people, but not Aaron Rodgers. So that's interesting. Cool. I've always liked Aaron Rodgers. Thought he was he's a great player, obviously, but he has an outgoing personality. So I could see that.
Very, very interesting personality. He can be very prickly, but he can also be very outgoing and cool. So it kind of depends. It depends on if they won and if they decided to kick a field goal or not.
I hear you.
Matt LaFleur, your thoughts?
So you mentioned your wife, and we talked earlier, and you said that your wife was an Auburn fan.
Yep.
So there you go. This is home.
Not the state of Alabama, it's the state of Auburn.
Okay, I know someone who would disagree with you. Roll Tide, but that's
watch your language. There are kids around.
I have no dog in that race. I'm San Diego born and raised, so go Aztecs. But Bo Jackson,
yes,
my hero growing up, even more so than Jordan and other transcendent stars. Even though he played for the Raiders, a huge Charger fan at the time, he, to me, was like my first foray into how athletes can become bigger than their sport with the whole Bo Knows campaign for Nike and his cross trainer. I had 2 posters in my room growing up. One was his huge panoramic view poster of Bo Jackson with all of the different sports they had in the commercial. Yep, and the other one
that poster
was Bo Jackson black and white with his shoulder pads and a bat over his shoulder. So he was, I think, the epitome of the pop culture sports crossover during that time frame for me. So any thoughts on Bo Jackson?
He was, again, as big as Michael Jordan was, Bo Jackson was the first celebrity shoe that I bought because of an ad campaign when I was a kid, because the whole Bo Knows thing was, okay, he's a freakish athlete. I mean, an absolute freak. He's the only person ever to play in the Major League Baseball All-Star Game and the Pro Bowl. I mean, it's insane what the man was able to do. And remember, he didn't ever play a full NFL season and still was named to the Pro Bowl.
Exactly.
That's how incredible he was. He had, after that hip injury, which actually is the same one that Tua Tagovailoa suffered, when you crush the pelvis and your hip just gets demolished. They didn't have the medical technology back then to figure out how to fix it. They gave him an artificial hip, and he came back and hit 20 home runs with the White Sox.
Right. I remember that.
Dude hit 20 bombs in the show with an artificial hip. Just think about that for a second. That's how incredible an athlete that Bo Jackson was. And we were robbed of some of the greatest athletic performances, I think, of all time by simply not seeing him have the rest of his prime. And his prime would have lasted he would have been the original, Frank Gore. He would have played, he would have been running back, an effective one, until he was in his mid to late 30s and still playing baseball as well. He's that amazing. But that ad campaign changed things because it was the first, like Michael Jordan, you had the whole Mars Blackman, and Spike Lee, and then they were really creative. But this is the first time they were able to just be like, throw anything against a wall and see what happens, because he transcended not just one sport, he transcended 2 sports. So Nike was able to take this guy and, okay, now we're diving into baseball. Now we're diving into football, because they were a basketball. Phil Knight had basketball on lockdown. But then when they got Bo, they had an inroads into baseball and they had inroads into football. And then after that, it was, well, who's the next big Nike guy? Derek Jeter. And Derek Jeter was how Michael Jordan was able to, the jump man. He was able to, Derek Jeter was the first baseball player that he endorsed. So then the baseball cleats with the jump man logo, Jeter gets them, who was, of course, the biggest star in the biggest market on the biggest team of all time. So then Manny Machado has the jump man. So now it's a big deal in baseball to have the Nike stuff. So Nike mushroom exploded into that. And the reason they did that's how they could land Tiger Woods. And now Nike is owning golf for several years.
Right.
And that iconic shot on 16 at the Masters where the ball rolls back and takes that one last rotation, and then it sits right on the lip with the Nike swoosh pointing right at the camera and then falls. Bo Jackson's the reason that all of that happened.
Completely agree. So right now, another huge, I don't even want to call it a sports show, but it is centered around a European football team, and that would be the show Ted Lasso. Are you familiar with the show at all?
I'm familiar with it. Yes, I've seen, I think, an episode or two.
Okay. I am a huge Ted Lasso fan, and not because of the whole football soccer portion of it. I think to me that's and it is even downplayed a little bit in the show, but I think how they're using sports to bring all these characters and relationships together, I think is what fascinates me, because it's all centered around the American football coach going to a European soccer or football team, not knowing what he's doing over there, and kind of, finding his way through with the help of his assistant coaches and with the help of the players, and then learning how to rebuild himself. So I think it's another one of those moments where, like, it's going to be ingrained in pop culture history just because of how great I think it is.
The one that I saw, the thing that I kind of it struck me was the idea from this came from somebody saying, "What if Pete Carroll went to Europe and started coaching a soccer team?"
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it struck me, because they have very similar kinds of personalities, the
Right.
character and Pete Carroll, which I think is a kind of a fascinating way of looking at it. And what struck me was the show kind of has an unexpected heart to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like again, go back to the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. That movie has
Right.
such a wonderful heart to it that you're not expecting the first time you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the vibe I got from the one episode of Ted Lasso that I saw. Was this is not about sports. Kind of like Jerry Maguire is a movie about relationships. It has sports as a backdrop. Ted
Exactly.
Lasso is kind of like a show about relationships that uses sports as a backdrop.
Exactly. That is exactly correct. And I agree with you, the whole Pete Carroll portion. I think his mannerisms can be seen, or can be translated to what we see in the character of Ted Lasso. So I agree. Another field of sports that's really taken off in pop culture, and I'm in Las Vegas right now, so they have a huge esports arena, and that's something that really, I think, is starting to gain a little more foothold in the pop culture realm, and the
Oh yeah.
sports realm is esports. And I know they have a lot of different leagues, a lot of different teams. I'm not too familiar with it, but I know that it's beginning to gain some traction.
Oh
Have
yeah.
you seen any of that around?
Oh yeah, I mean the Luxor, that gigantic arena that they have there
Hmm.
is huge. It's,
Right.
in fact, I've heard rumblings and rumors that San Diego State, over at the West Campus where the stadium's going in, they
Hmm.
have toyed with the idea of putting that kind of an arena, certainly not to that
Really?
size or that level, but a
Hmm.
couple hundred seats, some sort of a gaming arena in over
Oh,
there.
that's
Like that
cool.
idea at least has been floated. I know that. That's how big that esports have become. I mean, Marshawn Lynch has an esports entity that he is
Oh,
co-owner of with
wow.
his cousin Josh Johnson, the former University of San Diego quarterback,
Hmm.
who's played for like 35 different professional football teams in 8 different leagues. And Josh keeps on going, man. He's a good dude. He's a good quarterback to have on your
Yeah.
club because he knows literally every system. They have an esports entity. The League of Legends final from 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, the League of Legends final had a larger viewing audience than the Patriots Rams Super Bowl of the same year. More people
Wow.
worldwide were streaming or watching the League of Legends final. The true numbers, you
Wow.
can look them up. Than the Super Bowl, I forget what number, Super 52 or 3, whatever it was, where the Patriots beat the Rams.
Hmm.
That's when I went, whoa, this
Wow.
is
That's
this is legitimately massive, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, esports has become, like, everybody does. I've talked to Joey Bosa, and he's a Call of Duty guy. Bubba Watson, when he was here
hmm
at the U.S. Open, and he was 2 shots off the second round lead. Said, how am I going to deal with the stress of this? I'm going to go home. I'm going to play Call of Duty. I'm going to play Call of Duty constantly to keep my mind off of what is going on here at the U.S. Open. They're all over the place, and you
Right.
see how big mad professional football players get really pissed off about their Madden scores. Like that's important to them. It's
It is. You're
legitimately
right. No,
important to
right.
them.
Right.
Fernando Tatis Jr. is on the cover of MLB The Show, and hopefully will
Hmm.
be till the end of time.
Yes.
Like he keeps a little eye on what his rating is in MLB The Show on PlayStation, no Xbox now too. But like it's really something for them. I know Johan Santana threw the first no hitter in Mets history several years ago, was an all
Hmm.
star for the Twins for several years.
Hmm.
He would play video games to get scouting reports on other hitters. He would instead
Oh,
of looking at a
goodness.
video before a game, he would pop in a video game. They were that accurate even back then. Like,
Right,
what
right.
can I attack this guy? So he would play a video game to try and figure out how to attack. That was more or less the early editions of scouting reports. So
Hmm.
baseball video games have become huge in popular culture. I mean, look at this new Free Guy movie that Ryan Reynolds has coming out. It's all
Exactly.
about video games.
Hmm. Very true. And I just to mention, you mentioned Tatis Jr. Now, I just purchased the game, so I've been playing that nonstop, and it's just outstanding. I think the realism they've put into the game and the broadcast that they have within the game is just phenomenal. I've always been a
Done in San Diego studios. Yeah.
exactly. I've always been a Matty V fan, so it's great always hearing his voice on there. Um, you're also a host of a popular podcast that celebrates all things San Diego Padres, and that is On Fryer.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be found on all major platforms. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that and how that's really grown for you as a fan of the game, I guess.
No, thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, and I wear my Padres hat as well.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the team. A fan of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice. It was interesting. When we first started. It was 2019 spring training, right when Manny Machado signed.
Okay.
So that's when
the first huge signing of the Padres. Yeah.
That was somewhat of a small deal. It was interesting to start it because we really had no idea what to do with a podcast. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how long should it go? What should you do? And we just finally realized, like, dude, just talk. Like, I like what we're
Exactly.
doing now. Just have some ideas and just talk. Do some interviews with people. We've been able to have some really cool interviews. We did a full special episode for the 5th anniversary of the Tatis trade with the White Sox. And we actually got
right
the
on.
scout.
The
yeah,
James
scout,
Shield trade.
yeah, exactly. The scout who led the scouting team to go find which guy do we want from the system. Oh, let's go with Tatis. Yeah, the guy who said go with Tatis. So we talked to
Right
him for the
on.
podcast as well. You can go,
That's
you can go
cool.
and check
Yeah.
that one out. It's a really cool platform to just wrap, because when you're doing TV, you got 3 minutes to do your whole show 5 times a week. And then that's for
Mm-hmm.
6 o'clock. And you got a minute and a half, 2 minutes to do it at 11 o'clock. You can't possibly say all the things that you want to say. So being able to get on and do 45 minutes once a week, sometimes it's not even enough. We quote unquote emergency podcasts just because we have
Mm-hmm.
a lot more we want to say about something. We did
Mm-hmm.
one for the Slamorena game. Talked to Louis Camarena, Daniel Camarena's
Oh, nice.
big brother,
Right.
about, again, how much baseball means to their family and how much it meant, for him to, hit that home run for his dad off Max Scherzer.
Right.
The Joe Musgrove no-hitter emergency,
Oh,
podcast.
my goodness.
So
Yes.
it's really cool to just be able to be like, I am ticked off about this, and let me tell you why. Or why is everybody else calling for AJ Preller's head right now? I know he screwed up the deadline, but he got the last 4 of them right. Let's not
Yeah.
be, no recency bias here. You can go from 1 week completely overreacting and going nuts and hot takes, and the next week going, I thought about this a little bit. Let's pump the brakes on fire, everyone. Although I did say last week, Larry Rothschild has got to go. He's a major
And
problem.
I agreed with
that
you.
actually
Mhm.
came true. So
I
thank
agree with
God
you.
for that.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. So everyone out there, this is what you'll get on Fryer. So make sure you go subscribe, like, follow them. Yeah, and I think I won't take up too much of your time on Padres right now because I want everyone to go listen to you and watch your own podcast there. But I think
I appreciate that. Yeah.
that just goes to show how much a player A and an ownership and franchise B can elevate a city and a fan base and go beyond sports. So
Yep, it does. It's a community.
yes.
It's a community. It's a fun place to go hang out. It's a place to be with your friends and feel either pleasure or pain together.
That's true. That is very true. Very true. Didn't think about it like that. Yeah. You go live those moments together and sharing that memory. So yeah.
It's like being an Auburn fan. It's like when they win, everything's good for a week. When they lose, your week sucks. It's like that. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I hear you.
And like a couple years ago when they went out and beat Oregon and Justin Herbert in the first game of the year, it was like, woo,
Mhm.
national championship game, here we come. It was, you just feel like, man, if they can beat a dude like that and a team like that on a neutral field, it's on. And then we realized that, Bo Nix was way over his skis and Gus Malzahn is a terrible game planner and the season went completely sideways. But for that 1 week, it was the best week ever.
Yeah. Completely agree. Well, I will wrap it up here and say thank you again, Derek, very much for taking some time out of your day to chat with us. We really appreciate it here at PopCultX, and we hope to hear more from you soon. We'll share out all your info on our website, on our social media platforms. And thank you again for taking some time today.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on. Fun talking to you. It's nice to talk to some fellow sports fans, especially San Diego sports fans. Anytime you guys want to chat, man, hit me up.
Will do. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. All right. See, told you, sports and pop culture, and how it all kind of mingles together. It's so. I think it's fascinating. Personally, I know Gabe really isn't. I won't want to speak for him, but he said this on air before. He's not really a big sports guy, which is fine because it's not for everyone. But it is something for me that's part of my life. Has always been. I've always enjoyed playing sports, watching them. Um, and it's something that I think, along with pop culture, is a good way for us to come together as a community, as we talked about in the interview. And it's really not important, but I guess it can be important, because it builds togetherness. It fosters positive mentality, especially when you're winning. Um, but it's something that we can all and enjoy together in the victories and feel the pains and defeats. And it really unites us, just like pop culture does. Pop culture unites us in ways that crosses racial boundaries, it crosses financial boundaries, I guess, class level. Pop culture really unites us in that way, as does sports. So I think the mingling and the connectivity of sports and pop culture together is just so fascinating to me. Now, here on Pop Cult X, we do like to celebrate and highlight, not celebrate, but really give a shout out to nonprofits that really are making a difference. Now, I follow, as you know, Gabe put me on to the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel show on Amazon Prime. Fantastic. Finally finished all 3 seasons. Didn't want it to end, but it did. Hopefully, we'll get a fourth season soon. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Come on, get on it. I want to see more. But I followed the lead actress, Rachel Brosnahan, on Twitter, and she is doing some charity work for a nonprofit called Covenant House. Now, Covenant House is a nonprofit that for over 4 decades has helped transform and save the lives of more than 1 million homeless, runaway, and trafficked young people. They offer housing, support, services to young people in need, and they're currently reaching about 50,000 youths per year. These youths who are coming off the streets. The young people that they serve are usually disconnected from their families and other social support. These kids who have endured traumatic and adverse childhood experiences. In addition to living on the streets, many have survived abusive homes, spent time in juvenile justice facilities, aged out of foster care, or been victims of human trafficking and exploitation. So this nonprofit, Covenant House, and you can see them at covenanthouse.org, so you can go donate, volunteer, find out how you can help out with them, is really reaching a population that I don't want to say is, well, I guess in a way they are underserved, especially those kids coming out of foster care. So, as you know, foster care, the kids are already traumatized because they're taken away from their home. But then once they age out of the system, they're basically, I don't want to say forgotten, but they're left to go fend for themselves. Most likely they don't have the tools or skills necessary to do that. So Covenant House, along with a lot of other nonprofits, really help to, kind of give those kids the lift up and boost that they need, because we all need that help every now and then. I mean, so it's something that the program there, they build a life affirming bridge for young people by engaging the youth on the street from their outreach program, providing no barrier safe short term housing to meet their immediate needs, and also a longer term transitional housing, which is the rites of passage for those foster kids to assist those who are ready for more independent living. So once again, Covenant House, I highly recommend you go check them out. We'll have a link on our website for it. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking to you guys alone tonight. Kind of miss the banter with Gabe and I, but I hope you find this episode exciting. I hope you go root for your favorite sports team. Make sure you drop us a message. Let us know who your favorite sports team is, what your favorite sport is, who's your favorite player in that sport, who do you think is the greatest of all time in that sport, and how has that person or someone in your sport life transcended sports into the pop culture realm. And we want to hear all about it. So leave us a message, drop us a line, following us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on our website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You name it, you go look for PopCultX. Search that in Google. You'll find us all across the board, and we look forward to hearing from you. So once again, stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.